All right, everyone, welcome back to the Be Healthy and Thrive podcast. I am here with Tiffany, who is a diet and breakup mentor. So I am so excited for you all to talk to her because she just always has some awesome stuff. She also has her own podcast, the Diet Breakup Podcast, right? That's what it's called.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And we actually just did an episode on that too. So definitely check out her podcast. And so thank you so much for being here, Tiffany.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to finally connect with you face to face.
I know, as much as face, it is face to face, just virtually.
Yeah, virtually.
Yeah. So, this is something that I think, we just talked about in your podcast, but it's just such a great, important topic for people to talk about, like breaking up with diets, which seems scary to some people, right?
Yeah.
Because a diet provides a guideline of right and wrong. And so when you come to just embracing stuff that's good for your body, it's scary. So could you just maybe share with us who you are, what you do, and also your story with breaking up with diets?
Yeah. So I call myself the diet breakup mentor, and I'm really passionate about helping women that have been on the yo-yo dieting for years find a better way. And I know when it came to me, I hit a point where I was sick and tired of counting calories or points or measuring my food and obsessing about what I could and could not eat and really not seeing any results. This up and down, up and down, up and down. And I was just over it, right? I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. So my journey is kind of different in that I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and my life just kind of changed, right? So I couldn't do these like extreme exercises anymore. And I kind of had to just say, I kind of don't care about the weight anymore. I don't care about that. I just want to feel normal. And so I just started listening to my body again and what it needed and what made it feel good. And then the weight started dropping. I was no longer, figuring things out. And then I was feeling much better. So it was kind of interesting. I stopped dieting after doing that for 15, 20 years. And then all of a sudden things started shifting.
That's just amazing that it's almost like it took you having something though to kind of get to that point. But can you maybe even share just about what fibromyalgia is for those who are listening and aren't familiar that actually may even have something like it and don't know, or those who do? Because I've had a couple clients with it and it's been a journey in them figuring out what's best for them. So yeah, can you share a little bit about that with us?
So there's a little bit of debate about whether or not it's actually an autoimmune disease. It fits a lot of the same characteristics as an autoimmune, except it doesn't really attack vital organs like an autoimmune does. However, I also have Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune. But fibromyalgia usually is described by chronic pain, and it presents different with every single person. So for me, it's chronic migraines every day, and pain throughout my body, especially my neck and my back. But I've known people that say it's more like in their legs. It just presents differently. In fact, there's times so I broke out in hives for 6 months, had no idea why. And I thought, this is ridiculous. And they're like, that's fibromyalgia. I'm like, what? It's like, and sometimes I feel like anything unexplained kind of goes into this bubble, right? And so that's kind of how it presents for me. But usually it's chronic pain, and people will ask, does it ever go away? And I'm like, I think it's better some days than others. But since I've figured this out, I've not been pain-free. I've not had a day where I'm completely pain-free. There's things that help or things that, make it worse. But also usually most people have chronic fatigue that they just can't get rid of also.
And did you find that there were certain, along as you were going on this journey, breaking up with diets, finding something that works for you, that there were certain foods or certain things that you did that helped reduce the pain, and certain ones that made it worse? Did you come across any of that?
Yeah, I definitely find when I eat too much sugar, processed sugar, that definitely increases. And I'm sugar addict, that's my comfort. I go to the baked goods, I go to the donuts, I go to the chocolate, right? And if I eat too much of that, I definitely notice that the pain increases. And, especially early on, I just couldn't even get out of bed some days, right? So cooking was out, and my husband's not really a cook. His idea of cooking dinner is grilled cheese and soup, or throwing some noodles on with jarred sauce, or picking something up at a fast food restaurant. So those sort of things don't help either. eating too much processed foods. I found that the more I eat fruits and vegetables, that helps. And I will only buy meat now, like beef that's grass-fed, organic. Same thing with chicken. So my mom now has 4 chickens. It's just kind of funny. I've never been an egg eater. I've never liked them. They've always kind of made me sick. The only time I've ever wanted them was being pregnant. So clearly
Right.
then. And so we get eggs from these chickens now, and I love them, and they're amazing. And so it's kind of funny. You eat what your food eats, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you know those chickens are eating corn, which you're not supposed to be eating, or soy, or any kind of stuff, that's what you're eating in those eggs. And I have found that that's made a huge difference too. So now I will only get eggs from, we call them the girls. The
Mm-hmm.
girls.
The girls, the
Just
4
the girls. We're
girls.
like, hi girls, hi ladies. We
Got some eggs for me today?
They all have names. They're like our pets. But I'm like, hi girls, I only eat eggs from the girls.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because my boys will see white eggs and they're like, why are they white? They don't, because they don't lay white eggs. At least chickens don't, right?
Yeah.
They're very colorful and very different.
Very colorful. Yeah.
So.
Well, so I know, we were talking and you say you've lost 70 pounds since being on this journey, so we know part of that was your changing of your diet, your nutrition, but was exercise a huge part? What other things were you doing to care for your body?
Initially when I, after I had my youngest son, who's almost 5, ironically, he had some some eczema and some allergies. So I cut out some foods. It's amazing what you're willing to do when you're pregnant and nursing, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't want him on a soy formula. So I had cut out some things, but my idea then was like, well, if I have to cut out dairy and I have to cut out grains, I'm going to eat whatever I want that doesn't fit into those categories, because I'm not going to diet or go on while I'm doing that. It's hard enough. And amazingly, I learned how to cook all these different things. Like I cooked desserts that were grain-free and dairy-free and loved them because that's my comfort food. And I learned how to cook differently, and I never really went back to it. So I'm not completely like dairy-free or gluten-free, but I would say probably 75% free, right? And I just didn't really go back to that. But I don't always encourage other people, like, you have to cut it out. I just found that I felt better. I had more clarity. And I started exercising again. Well, and I've always been an exerciser, believe it or not. Like I've always enjoyed it. But when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, that had to change a little bit. I couldn't do the extreme, like, P90X followed by an hour spin class type. Couldn't do that anymore. But I have found that what I love doing is walking. I find that it's very calming. It's very meditating. I love doing some yoga, and I love Pilates. And those are all things that, let me stretch and move my body in a way that feels really good without putting too much pressure. And there's been times I'm like, I feel really good today. I'm going to go take a spin class. And I pay for it for 3 days because it's too much for my body right now. So I can go get on my bike and take a bike ride, and that's great. But me, I'm like gung ho on the spin bike. I'm like, I can't, I'm not really there. So,
yeah.
But it's also been finding something that I love and enjoy that makes my body feel good. Without being sore and stiff all the time, which I was for years, right? I was doing like heavy lifting and I was just like, if it doesn't hurt, it's not working. Right?
Yeah. That could be our mentality. Like, it's actually funny though, when I started CrossFit, my mom, obviously when you're sore, and I would say, Mom, I'm so sore. And like 4 years later, I'm like, I'm so sore. She's like, thought you stop. I'm like, no, you actually keep being sore a little bit because you're like increasing your weight. And so, but yeah, I agree. It's like often we think, okay, I didn't burn, I didn't sweat enough, I didn't lift this heavy, so I wasn't working. I'm like, no, it's working. It's just, you don't feel it as much, right?
Yeah. And I think what people don't realize is I'll have people, they're like, well, is it just like a workout sore for you now? I'm like, no, it's like me in bed, can't get out of bed for 3 days.
Right.
Everything hurts. So for me, it's not worth it.
Exactly.
Right? My cousin is a huge CrossFitter. She loves it, but she's like, should I not do that? I'm like, no, it's just, that's what you do. And that's what you love. And you don't have it. Like, but me, I'm in bed for 3 days.
Right. Exactly. And so that's what I think is even unique about you too, like the diet breakup. but also the exercise breakup in the sense like you found what works for you with your unique needs that you enjoy, because you shouldn't be doing that other stuff if that's going to hurt you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And it's being okay with that. It can be really hard. I can only imagine like if you did do all those other things and having to switch, but you just coming to the point where you're at peace with yourself
Hmm.
and what you do.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
important. So kind of what do you like as a diet breakup mentor, and a certified holistic health coach and essential oils expert, all these different things? What are the sort of things that you work on with your clients? Like, what do you feel like are the big needs that come out when working with them?
Well, I would say everybody comes to me saying, I want to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times is, they're so used to dieting that they want a lot of rules. So when they come to me and I'm like, we're just going to work on one thing this week. And they're like, what do you mean just one thing? You're not going to give me a diet plan. You're not going to give me you're not going to tell me what to eat. All you want me to do this week is just increase my water or, it's like whatever, right? Whatever it is for them. It's kind of shocking. So they kind of have to break out of that. And so sometimes it takes 3 or 4 sessions before they're like, I get it now. I get it now. I'm starting to break out of this mentality. And I start to see that just doing that one thing is, is helping me move forward and helping me move out of that. But the other thing is helping them move out of this idea that they need to be a certain weight or a certain size in order to be healthy, and helping them to find health for them. Because as chronic dieters, a lot of times we've been so up and down on the scales that we've done damage to our hormones and we've done damage to our gut. And until those are fixed, the weight's not going to move. And our bodies also have a set point. So just because there's this chart that says you're this height, you should be this weight, that doesn't mean that that's how God made you to be, right? And so looking at other factors other than the scale as victory. Um, is
Love that. Non-scale victories.
Yes.
Yeah, they talk
Like
about that.
you can write that in your initial goals because in 30
Yeah.
days from now, it won't be on there.
Exactly. Because in the whole 30, they've expanded since they came out, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. They actually have a section on their website, but even in some of their books called Non-Scale Victories, where they list some of them. Because I think, because the whole thing with the whole 30 too, because we were talking about this earlier, is that people want to step on the scale throughout the time, but they're like, do it before and after. Don't do it during the 30 days because that's not what it's about. So they're like, what you need to do is celebrate these non-scale stuff. So regardless of what happens at the end, if you lose weight or not, maybe you have more energy.
Same
You're
days.
like,
Yeah.
so that's great that you work on that with them,
And
your
when you're
clients.
not relying on getting a scale every day, you're seeing those things every day and seeing those wins every day. So when I tell my clients, I'm like, great, you can get on a scale today and get a starting point, but you're not going to get back on it for at least 30 days. And
Mm-hmm.
they're like, okay. I had one time, she goes, so I went to the doctor and I got my weight. Do you want to know it? I'm like, has it been 30 days? Nope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I don't want to know it.
I
So
love it.
that was because you had to go to the doctor, but nope, I don't want to know it for 30 days.
Right. Yeah. And I love that because just the work you do too, focusing on that, it's just so healing because
Yeah.
the society and media will tell us otherwise. And they're not always out for our best. And so, you coming in and just trying, it's very healing, I think, the work that you do. So
And I used to be obsessed with the scale,
yeah.
obsessed with it, like getting on it multiple times a day, and it would dictate my mood, or
Mm-hmm.
it's not worth it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're constipated, it goes up. You are dehydrated, it goes down. It has nothing to do with fat loss. So it's not really a
Exactly.
very accurate measure of anything.
Right, exactly. So good. So if anyone's listening and they're like, okay, I'm ready to break up with diets, what is one bit of encouragement or tip that you would give them?
Um, geez, one thing, I think it kind of depends on the person, but the first thing is that start to embrace that health is not defined by your weight, because all dieting out there is really 100% focused on weight and weight alone, nothing else. And so start to look at that and start to look at other ways that you're healthy. And I think that was a big point for me, is like, well, I don't have high cholesterol, I don't have high blood pressure, I don't, there's other things there. I'm not diabetic, there's not any of those other things. So okay, so start looking at that stuff, right? That would be probably, and that's probably one of the hardest mindset things to change, especially if you've been on this roller coaster for years and years. But if you know that you have health issues and you need to make a change, just look at one thing, even day to day. What is just the one thing I can do today to have success, and celebrate that you did that at the end of the day, and not look at, oh, but I didn't eat perfectly. Oh, but I didn't exercise like I should. Oh, but stop nitpicking, because that's just society's way of telling us like we're not good enough. And that's not true. Just do one thing good for yourself every day.
Love it. And I just love too that I think I was going to say something, but I forgot. But with that, like you and I are still even growing in on that, right? Like we're,
Yeah.
even though we're health coaches, we're still doing that. Like I have to tell myself, what's this one thing? So for me, because of my history with, not eating and overeating, all this stuff, I didn't want to track calories. I didn't want to do that. And it wasn't good for me, and I didn't, and I got a lot of results. But now I'm in a season where I'm like, I'm just curious, how much of carbohydrates am I eating a day, and proteins and fat. So now I'm looking at the little, the details, but before that was detrimental. Like I shouldn't, because it triggered me back, but now it's like, it's just, I have a place, my body's changing. I'm doing different things now. It's, so I think what you're saying too is just like, what's that one thing? And that one thing in this season can be different than that next one thing, right? But what is best for you on this journey? Because I've had many friends who are like, just track your food. And I'm like, nope, not going to track my food 3 years ago, and like MyFitnessPal or whatever. Oh, and another thing I was going to say is that one thing, sometimes some clients ask me to, for a food or health journal. I call it a health journal because I don't just have the food or exercise. I'm like, how was your sleep today? How's your stress? Did you have some personal growth time? What's a victory? So it seems similar, like that idea of like, let's celebrate everything that we're doing that's caring for ourselves.
Yeah, so it's funny because I work with a lot of diabetics. And so one thing I definitely want them to check is their insulin. But it's funny, they'll be like, what do you mean you don't want me to write what I eat? And I'm like, not unless you're having, like, let's say you wake up in the morning and it spikes. I want you to look back and say, what did you have for dinner, to start noticing these things. But I know I had a client one time that said, I don't know, I was so stressed out and I ate an entire sleeve of Ritz crackers. It's so bad of me. But my insulin didn't go up. And I was like, okay, maybe you shouldn't do that all the time, but instead of beating yourself up for eating that entire sleeve, maybe you just, now you know that that's a trigger for stress, and that's what you turn to. So write it down, jot it down, but you didn't need to write down every single thing that you did, so that maybe next time you're like, okay, I'm stressed. Instead of going for the sleeve of Ritz, I'm going to do something else.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like this whole grace process, really, when it comes to healthy living, that is just new to people. They're like, I don't need to do black and white. I'm not going to be punished if I gain 2 pounds during the holidays. I'm like, no, it's fine. Right. And so that mindset thing, of that place of grace. So awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. I would love for you to share where people, if they want to learn more about you, what you do, where they can find you on the World Wide Web and social media, and then share with us the freebie that you have for us.
Yes. So my website is just my name, TiffanyDeluisi.com. And my freebie that I like to give out is 5 tips to ditch the diet and transform your body. And I literally give 5 tips that are totally not related to food that you can start doing to start shifting your mindset around dieting and start to live a healthier lifestyle without doing that, without obsessing about food.
Awesome. Yeah. And guys, if you're listening and you like healthy podcasts, listen to her Diet Breakup podcast. I download it as I'm driving. I'm going to listen on the way. So that's another good resource for you all too. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, and thank you.
It was so great having you. And for those listening, be sure to check out the show notes as well for what's new happening with me and my business, whatever month this is going to air. I think it's this month. And so just check out the show notes. So I'll have all the links for everything that Tiffany mentioned. So thank you so much.
Thanks.